Good morning. Welcome to Monday. So we'll just start right off with you, Sean. I think I see building and planning in the house.
Good morning, Commissioner Sean Roy. Today I have Tracy Jackson with me here. We're gonna go over the budget for building and planning for 2025. Let me pull it up here.
For 25, the end of 25?
Sure.
Okay.
We're only 2 months into 26 and we're still putting 25 revenues on the books, so.
I don't argue with her.
The first one we're starting with is general fund, the community long range planning. So our revenues on this are gonna be goods and services. Mainly for zoning and subdivision land use agreements, so we're a little bit lower than our budget on there, but we're only 3,000 of 6,100. Miscellaneous, we came in over, we're 13,300 of a budget of just shy of 11,000. Expenses here, we came in under budget for personnel, 346,000 of 424. Supplies, she spent under $500 of her $3,800 budget there, mainly office supplies. So going back to personnel, we did have some combo code corrections we made in 26. And so 2026, we expect the budget to actuals to be much more accurate.
Was the personnel, did somebody get let go or retire?
No, we had budgeted certain ways and the actual combo codes of the employee were corrected to follow those budgets. So Tracy, I'm sure can talk a little bit more on this. Her staff is split between a quarter and 3/4 go here and there.
Oh.
And so the actuals were not accurate for how the employees were being coded on that. So we corrected that issue.
And that's the behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whatever portion of my time, manager's times, we all get split over the two funds. So it was just correcting the back end of the combo codes.
Services came in at 124 of 163 for the budget. The majority of that's gonna be internal services at 58,000. Professional contract services of another 57,000 and advertising of 3.5. If you want to fill in on any kind of services there.
And the professional and contract services is the portion that we can bill. It's not permit related for the fire code. And so it's when Cowlitz 2 does our fire investigations for the county. That's the portion that the general fund is paying. So that's what that 57,000 is.
What do we advertise for?
New positions or land use applications. So you'll whenever the next item, the agenda item, we have a subdivision that when it goes, SEPA reviews, anything for land use, they have to be advertised. Yes.
So we're rolling out of the general fund into the enterprise fund for building and planning, the 416 fund. License and permits came in a little over for revenues, 1.37 of the 1.36. That's going to be, building permits, mechanical permits, and plumbing permits, things of that nature. Goods and services came in under 1.13 of 1.36. That's going to be plan check fees, mitigation, excuse me. I don't know if Tracy can spill any light on that one.
So because we're at everybody's mercy when they come in the door, we can only thumb in the air, best guess at what we think is going to walk in the door. But a commercial project, a large project, apartment building, sports complex, something like that can just blow these fees out of the water, or it can make us look short. It's all a give and take of what the community is doing right now. And so we try to factor in interest rates, how many planning clearances we've done, because that's the first step for building permit. and then what the septic permits activity are doing. So we kind of try to factor all that in and do best guess, but it's always a crapshoot for what we really don't know what will walk in the door. But I have to say with this dry weather this year for 2026, we are busy. We are very busy. I think this dry weather and then with the interest rates dropping a little bit, it's helped. So we're seeing a lot of activity.
And the last revenue source is miscellaneous. Came in significantly over budget. We brought in 136.4 of 70,000. The majority of this is interest earnings. So that was approximately 73,000 of that value. On to side we really care about is the expenditures here. Personnel. Trace came in under budget again at 2.06 million of 2.24. Supplies, 21,600 of 36,500. Most of that's going to be office supplies, fuel for her inspectors, and then uniforms. Services came in at 788,000 of 1,078,000. The far majority of this is going to be internal services again at $460,000. Professional contract services at 226, and then interfund professional services at 15,000.
And on this one, the professional and contract services, part of that is the Cowlitz 2, the part that we can charge to the permitting fees. Some of that is our Acela permit system, and as well as the backup that we have, the third-party contract that we have in place that we can utilize when we need to for programming services. And then the rest is internal services that Sean said.
So internal service can cover IT, motor pool, risk, things of that nature. And then the current cash balance of this fund is $1.75 million. And that's building and planning's budgets.
On Tracy, on personnel, FTE filled is 19 and change, first of the year and last of the year. FTE open is 1 and 5. Did you eliminate 4 position or?
No, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. That's not us. We are fully staffed. We just made an offer
Yeah.
last week to our planning coordinator. We had a planner leave. She lived in Vancouver. She got a job in Battleground. We lost her after 5 years of a commute. So we internally promoted, and then we filled the front counter job. Tara starts with us March 16th. So we are completely full, but
Full right now, okay.
we are completely full. So I don't know what the 5 is. I'm not sure. But 19.19 sounds about right. We pay a little bit of Doug's time because we meet with him
Looks
weekly.
over stuff, yeah.
Yep, he does stuff for us. And then, like I said, portions are split between different,
Do you have a deputy as well?
No.
No deputies, okay.
no, we quit paying the deputy lot. We don't utilize him as much, so.
I'll have staff take a look at this as well, Commissioner, and we'll get back with you to see what the correct number is on that, if there's an issue.
Okay.
Oh, do you want to go?
Okay.
Can I steal a little bit of Commissioner's time? Just, I know Sean's got a busy morning. Because we are a fee-for-service department and we have really ramped up, we also have, we do all of Castle Rock's plan review, billing inspections, and building official work. We back up for Longview and Kelso. We are being asked to take on and administer work for Kalama and Woodland that we do not currently have contracts for, that I will be coming to the board after we get everything finalized to do their plan review, building, kind of like what we do for Castle Rock. It would probably do all of it for Kalama. And then Woodlands would be an interim while they look for somebody to get certification to do theirs. I believe they're going to utilize their fire code plan review person to do some of that, but in the interim, they don't have anybody. And so we will be taking on that additional work, as well as because we have been so streamlined. We do everything paperless. We went from 26 employees, we're down to 20. full-time FTEs. We do a lot with the employees we have, and I mean, I'm so appreciative of what they do, but we are, we currently have a valuation that we charge for our building permits is $123.68. Every other jurisdiction up and down this area uses the average of August of 2025, and it's 170.8. So we are way behind on our valuations of what we're charging for our fees. Not holistic fees, but just the building to build. If the board would so be obliged to let me increase my fees to match the rest of the jurisdictions and charge use the August of 25, and then update that every year. August of 25, it would help us increase our intake. And then also then I could possibly pay for an additional body. I have the money currently, but I don't want to reduce my ending fund balance anymore. I would like a little bit of cushion. I know this is the wrong time to ask, I know, with everything on your table, but I am a fee for service and I have a service to provide. So I don't want to make my timelines longer. I hate that excuse. Oh, it takes weeks and weeks. Right now, we're right about 2 weeks out on building permits, and I would expect it to stay that, if not reduce a little bit. I would like that person to, it'd be a code tech 2, 3, or 4, however they came in with their certifications, but it would be succession plan is also, I'm gonna have 3 people that could leave anytime, that could retire on the building side. So this would give me an extra body to be out in the field and do the other jurisdictions, as well as help me at the counter and get plan review out. It kind of, an ombudsman, it could be a little bit of everything, which several of my employees down there on the building side we utilize for different things, whether it be counter to get plans out, whether it be in the field, or whether it be doing plan review.
So you're asking to increase your fees $40?
The valuation, not the fees, but the building valuation, yes. For the ICC, using the ICC annual report, and that's what all the other jurisdictions currently do.
And another FTE.
And then, well, I would like to increase it. Could just ask for the board's blessing, and then I would have to come back and have a public hearing to increase the annual, the building valuation. But then to offset that, I would like to utilize the extra fee and intake to pay for a body. It'd be 100% cost covered by enterprise fund. It wouldn't be anything general fund at all. All of my building staff is 100% enterprise fund, except for a portion of 10%, I think, of Mike's is general fund. And then also I can throw out there that if I increase my fees down the road or across the board going forward, I might be able to bring some of the people that are a portion paid out of general fund into this, solely into the permit, to save the general fund some additional money. I have that option as well.
How soon do you think you'd see that turnaround?
The what turnaround?
To where you're not gonna be taking it out of the general fund? Or you'd be switching it over to the enterprise fund?
I could do that probably in the next month. It wouldn't be a huge, I mean, it'd be an FTE or 2 at the most, but every little bit helps. But this would be in addition to that. So I would have 21 employees, not 20. We have the workload, we have, I mean, with the vacation and sick leave coverages alone, half the time, one of the 2 of my plans examiners goes out in the field just for coverage. We have the vehicle, we don't need anything like that. We already have the computer. It would be a subscription to the Blue Beam, and then just the body. Paying for the body. We have the backup car, so we would be okay there.
So what's the amount of the increase that you're talking about for the,
An FTE?
yeah,
Any-
no. For the fee that you want to increase?
The fee valuation, if we use last year's numbers, we could bring in about $200,000 additional. And the FTE would be anywhere between 80 and 125 based on a loaded number, based on their qualifications coming in the door, whether it be a 2, 3, or 4, however their certifications. So I'd still be ahead by adding in the additional fee valuation.
When you say other jurisdictions, are you talking about Clark and Lewis
Yep.
up and down?
Yep. And and then all the way up north. Yep. Which I don't usually count those, but around us, yes. And we can come back to it too. I know you guys have a big morning.
Yeah. I'll just take I'm not usually one that's, if your argument is I want to keep up with the Joneses, I struggle with that.
Mhm.
If your argument is I have a cost structure, we're doing this extra work and this will cover that cost structure, I can live with that. I don't care what other people do. What I care about is what we do and how we do it. So I'm not opposed to you looking at that, but when you come back with it, I kind of like to see how this covers because we've added this extra work. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, then the other two come back with, okay.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Sean, and this might go a little while, budget discussion.
Yes, sir. So thank you for taking the time to talk about budget here. Just want to give a quick recap of the approved budgets for 2026 and 27, and then have some discussion on some of those points. For 2026, we approved a budget that was $61 million in revenues, $74 million in expenditures. So we had a, net operating negative of just over 13.1 million. For 2027, the board approved revenues of 69.3 million and expenses of 79.5 million. About a net operating loss of $10.3 million there. Included in that revenue was an unknown revenue at that time of approximately $8.3 million. I'm here today to talk about that unknown revenue and to discuss where that is and what will be made of.
That was that magic number out of the sky to make everything balance.
So now we're here to talk about it more, so we can
Yeah.
put a little bit more concrete feelings to this as we roll into 26 and plan for 27. The first one I'd like to talk about is property taxes. The board has chosen to bank a capacity of approximately $750,000. In 2027, we're anticipating the 1% to be about $220,000, and hopefully new construction will be about $350,000, with totaling up to about 1.32 million. I would be asking the board to take the full 1% and all bank value associated with that and new construction. Some of our next other options available to us are reimplementation of the mental health tax. That could still fund therapeutic courts. Some of the language on there does have supplanting language and could be used for only expanded programs or new programs. The anticipated collection on that would be about $3.3 million. The board has the option of putting out to vote for a juvenile detention tax that could be used for our juvenile facilities. Additionally, some of those dollars could be used for adult facilities. If approved by the vote of the people, that could be about $3.3 million as well, 0.1%. I think you should all have a handout in front of you with a chart as we get into the public safety ones, as some of the names are similar. We currently collect the criminal justice sales tax. That's what funds our law and justice fund. There's 2 additional public safety taxes available to us. the one highlighted in the bottom orange, the public safety enhancement sales tax that was approved in 2025 is a 1/10%. That is a vote of the board to enact. Currently, a few of our jurisdictions around us, the cities have implemented this. Many jurisdictions around the state have applied to implement this. Currently, 2 have been successful throughout the state, both King County and the city of Kent. Uses of these funds could be for public safety related items such as sheriff's office, courts, jail, and ancillary items associated with that. The non-voted councilmatic would be about approximately 0.1% and be $3.3 million an estimate of. The other public safety is the public safety sales tax. And this can range from up to 3/10 of sales tax on that. It's a shared tax. We would have to share 40% of our collections with the cities on their per capita basis. 2/10 of this tax would estimated to be approximately, I don't have that in front of me. $3.72 million with an additional 2.48 being shared with the local cities. Another revenue generating option would be to look at our veterans levy. On the first Tuesday in September, we have the option of looking at their fund balance, seeing if it exceeds the next year collection, and foregoing collection on that and bringing those dollars into the general fund. That's about $220,000 a year. The current cash balance of our veterans fund is approximately $1,050,000. Additionally, we have the option of a road shift. That'd be shifting taxes from our roads to the general fund. And that value can vary depending on what the board chooses. Another option we're looking at is our investment earnings. Looking at the ability from special revenue funds into the general fund and what that may look like. We're still early on that one. And I want to come back to you with additional items. So we're open to discussion on some of these items with the board. I bring it up now because if we do have a vote of the people needed on these items, we would want to go out in the August primaries. The cutoff date to get something on the ballot would be May 1st, and so we'd need a decision soon so we can prepare for any documents to go out to the vote. We can always run down the list and get some yays or nays, or if you'd like to discuss it more.
A lot to unpack here.
That was a lot of talking. I apologize.
No, and you've been working with us. You've been doing good work and bringing this to us. It's part of what we pay you to do some of this, but I'll try and unpack some thoughts on here, and the others can certainly share in, but what I don't see in here to balance the budget is reductions. And I have, it's a struggle for me to say that the taxpayer needs to be responsible for our overspending. It's taking money from here and shifting it over here to make a temporary fix, which won't stop the problem because we'll continue to overspend. And then in a few years, we'll be going over here again to shift over here to make this work. I strongly believe all entities, just like business, government entities, need to live within the economies of their jurisdiction. We need to live within what they give us. And we know what they give us. We can predict that very easily. We just don't want to live within what we're giving. When we just take from here, we take it out of this pocket, we put it in this pocket, it provides no growth to the county. We're not going to see any more revenues out of that. If we're doing a tax that the way to grow your economies is you bring business in. If the people want to pay for something that's bringing something in that's going to generate, like Amazon, what a great find. They're going to generate some stuff. We need more of that. That's how you fix a long-term budget. So it's a real, and I know this is a lot of heartache for people that work in these buildings. I get that. And I don't do these things easy, but if you want to get to a long-term fix, you have to live within what the people give you. And as your economy grows, we'll grow, we'll benefit, or we'll have some balances. Somehow, and I don't know where this happened, we got out of whack. And we want to put it back in whack just by taking from somebody. And I struggle with that, Sean. I really do. When I talked about it, I think in November or whatever, I mean, this is no secret. Anybody could read the tea leaves and see the numbers. We knew it wasn't going to be good. And I threw out some options. I never heard one. What I heard was veiled threats of lawsuits. The world's going to fall. What I didn't hear is, well, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can do this. There seems to be an entitlement in government that we're going to get what we need, and how you find it is up to us. And it's almost real similar to this. I struggle with that. So when you're talking to me about increasing taxes on the people, I don't know that I can do that. Unless I see some concrete reductions in expenses and how we're going to make sure that we maintain that. We don't even have a plan in place that says this is how we're going to spend our money so we know everybody stays in check. We don't. I've thrown out a couple ideas and nobody wants to talk about them because they're painful. Now we have the areas that seem to be able to balance themselves. Building and planning, public works seem to balance themselves. So I don't know why we can't do it in general fund. But I'm probably gonna, well, more than probably, I will push back on this stuff just for me.
I think that's fair. And we haven't talked about cuts today. I think our first approach is to look at where we end up on our revenue side so we can then start talking about our cuts. We can't cut if we don't know what our goal is.
Yeah. See, that's a little different approach than I take. I know where our revenue side is. I can predict it. I can see it. So I'd say this is where you need to meet. And if we find other things, we'll give some bonuses back to you. But we keep kicking that down the road because nobody wants to deal with it. And we'll continue to kick it down the road as long as we let them. And I'm at the point, I'm done letting. Let's throw it out there. This is what it is and move forward from that.
Sure. So just to put that into perspective, if we did not increase our revenues like we budgeted for 27, we would be still at our 2026 plus a small amount. So we would be looking at total cuts of about $18.5 million.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Commissioner Dahl said. What I would add though is that it's not just that we're not living within our means. We have a state that continually shoves unfunded mandates down our throat that we have to deal with one way or another. And those oftentimes come out of the general fund. And that isn't necessarily us not living within our means, though I agree that we don't. It's a juggling act. We're spinning plates all the time, and we've got to keep those plates spinning. And it's up to us to determine, it's up to us to determine which ones we want to keep spinning. And we need to decide what the services that we deem that we want, which ones are statutorily mandated, and which ones the community wants, right? Those are all three different things. And we need to, it is a balancing act that we have to do. We're not gonna cut $18 million out of our budget. It's just, that's not gonna happen. So I think it needs to be a combination of both. And I think that if we are gonna talk about increased revenues, that it needs to be put to the people. They decide whether or not they're going to pay, and then it's up to us to deal with whatever the consequences of that are. But the environment that we live in with the state that we have with insurance, those are things that are beyond our control. That's not us choosing to not live within our means. Like I said, although I agree that we don't oftentimes, but we have to figure out how to offset that. And I am one who I agree with Commissioner Dahl. I'm not one for increasing taxes. If we have to, then I think that goes to the vote of the people. They're the ones that are going to decide. That's my personal opinion.
I'm fighting with some sinus problems here. I think that there has to be some type of a balance. If you recognize that the added insurance costs we absorbed this year, that's basically 4% of our budget increase beyond our control. If you look at the additional costs for contracts that we have with the unions, that's an additional 1% increase in our costs that is already negotiated and it's on the table. Can't avoid those things. So there's a 5% increase that if we don't increase revenues anywhere along the line, that 5% increase is going to equate to some level of loss in all the departments somewhere across the board. Those cuts have to take place. Yeah. And it's not just a matter of if our revenues stayed the same and there was no increases, then yeah, we could directly draw a line and control other things. But as state mandates on top of all of that come in, and then the 5% increase that's beyond our control, somewhere, either A, we've got to make more than just little cuts. That's drastic cuts. Like you're looking at, like you said, millions of dollars that we don't have readily available. So there has to be a balance. I'm not in favor of trying to figure out how to make a tax increase or shift monies around to cover $18 million. No desire whatsoever. Somewhere there's going to have to be some cuts, but somewhere there's going to have to be additional revenue to cover part of that. The fixed costs that we know of on the wages that we have that have been negotiated by this board that are already in place, at a minimum, we should be covering those things, knowing that they were negotiated and the ink is on the paper. That's a done deal. The added insurance costs, we're trying to take measures to get that under control by going with different options there. But somewhere there has to be a balance and not just sit back and say, okay, every time we have an increase in costs that's beyond our control, let's just figure out how many people we have to lay off to cover that. And at what level are we responsible to provide the services that we do provide, whether it's the courts or building and planning or wherever it is, or what level of service are we expecting to provide to the community without cutting that down to the point where we're a failure. So somewhere I think there has to be a balance on both sides of that. We're gonna have to make some serious cuts in our budgets, but at the same time, we're gonna have to look at increases in our revenues.
Well, government doesn't generate revenue, it generates taxes.
All right.
Two, some point in time, you got to start pushing back at the nonsense that comes out of Olympia. And I don't have any problem doing that. And some counties are going to have to start speaking up. I don't know what all these services are. Everything we do, we force you to come and take from us. I mean, I can say police enforcement is a service that taxpayers want. I can say our roads are, but most of the time it's just, you have to come to us because we're telling you, you got to come to us. So to to me, government is a bigger burden than it needs to be. And if it shrinks, I'm good with that. Now, obviously, I'm probably the only one good with that, but I'm good with that. And I just don't see paying, and we want to throw, here's what always cracks me up. We don't get a vote. We put out an advisory vote on behavioral health tax. Nobody wants to believe that the people actually voted it down. They want to give you reasons why they didn't know what they were doing. And so we want to put it out there again. And the disrespect for the voters just drives me crazy. They told us, so why would I put that out there again? They told us by a large margin that they didn't want to pay this. But we'll keep pressing it till we wear them down and they say yes. I just have a different view. I think the government is burdensome as it is. We're never willing to shrink, never willing to shrink. And I'm not going to throw all that on the backs of the taxpayer. But that's just one person's view.
So Commissioner Dahl, I'd like to expand on a point you made. Growing our revenues as the county grows. 1/3 of our revenues or more is property taxes. Unfortunately, that is limited annually to 1%. As our taxi base grows, we do receive new construction, but as those appreciate, we are limited to 1% annually on that. About $11.5 million of it is from sales tax. Sales tax usually follows the economic drivers considerably more than a property tax does. But with only 1/6 of our revenue coming from that, it's much more difficult to grow with the county as the county grows. The other half is from more state-funded items and things of that nature. The two main funding sources for the county, half of our revenues do come from some sort of tax. When we look at the expense side of the general fund, by far, the highest majority is our public safety system, that being both the sheriffs, the jails, the juvenile facilities, the courts, the prosecutor's office, and our public defender's office. So when we do look into these significant cuts, that would be a high majority of our cuts just based on use of the budget itself. So this one would be clear on that.
This is a public meeting, so if you have a desire to speak, you're certainly welcome to. The green light.
My name is Brian Magnuson and I live at 274 Barlow Point Road. You guys have a tough job. And I would say that I joined the Cowlitz Economic Development Council back in '97. And that's when I learned that we had the ability to start a public facilities district. And myself and one other individual eventually got that started through the county, as you know. And my focus in life has always been to make this a better place than I found it. And so when we built the conference center, as you see it today, it used to have a bunch of old dilapidated buildings around 7th and Washington. And that was really a proud moment for me to see that. And the revenue that brings in, even to this day, the amount of folks that enjoy that facility. Well, so the next step of this was to build a mixed use or a multi-facility that would include sports and a larger conference area. We've probably worked on this for, well, we've went through 2 master plans, and now we have the contractors on board, the designers, and we are working through a process where we were thinking that to build this, which is about a 60,000 square foot facility, it would require 1/10 of 1%, which would be for us $3 million a year. And that would service about a $38 million bond. And this is tough for me to ask you guys this question, but if you go for a couple tenths of 1% on sales tax, it'll kill our opportunity. Because, and we were talking about doing this in August. And I would say, this is my view of the world. So 5 years from now, if you pass a 0.2%, Cowlitz County is going to look exactly the same as it does today. If we're allowed to pass a 0.1% and the voters approve it, we will fill hotel rooms and we will make this place very different than it is today. I just feel like that I needed to say this because, and I know it's a tough job. Do you guys have to balance this or figure out how you're going to approach it? But I'm pretty passionate about this. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ron Kozlowski. And I side, of course, with you in your budget woes, et cetera. And it's very interesting. It's almost like you need to give a white paper to the individuals of this community on kind of our 5-year past or whatever. Budgeting, the money that we have coming in basically hasn't increased other than very slightly. But as you mentioned, tremendous amount of unfunded mandates, not only directly from the governor's office and through there, but through the courts and everything else. You have no control over those. We need a white paper to our representatives in Olympia telling them how in the heck are we supposed to, in the counties of the state, supposed to be able to manage on a budget when they keep crashing it every single year with their unfunded. And you guys are closer to us, the citizens, trying to provide the services and the things there. They're sitting up there and most of them have no idea what the heck's going on in the state. If you talk to any of them, they're just in a kind of a mushroom cloud, et cetera. So we, the citizens, want the services closer to us, which is through you, the county, and our cities. But we're hamstrung. So anyway, it says, again, back to the citizens. Again, the citizens of this county have had opportunities in the last 5 years for some new projects, some new investments, and through environmental edicts and other things, we haven't got those. Fortunately, private enterprise like Amazon has taken some step, et cetera, but we haven't been able to entice others. So there's a message, like you mentioned, going to the citizens and telling them, hey, this is the situation. We only have so much and the state keeps jabbing hunks out of that. So we are having to reduce or try to survive as a service to the citizens of our county. There's a message there that needs to go out. And I don't think many people really understand that message. They're too used to the last 4 years. You just keep printing money and printing money and printing money and expect someone is ultimately, well, our heirs or whatever will have to pick up the funds. Thank you.
Yeah. The state's disgusting, actually. The things they're doing, if you've seen their latest budget, is going to be the tune of about 80 billion or whatever it is, just obscene. It's and to balance it, of course, they're going to take some retirement funds to put over into their carbon initiative and stuff. It's just, it's totally out of control. Anyway, Sean, you need a yay or nay on some of these things, and you should get that, because whether I agree with it or I disagree with it, we gotta move forward.
So as we plan for the 27 budget, we will need to think about some of these items. And so just as the board, We don't need final decisions on a lot of these items. We can get to that in as we go forward. But on any of these sales tax item that would need a vote of the people, we would need to move on this now. So I can-
Well, I will say this, I do agree with Commissioner Dahl's point on the mental health tax. I do not agree that we need to put that back to the people. It was voted down. So I'm a no on that one.
great.
I know what that would.
Another one of the items we talked about earlier was the juvenile detention tax. That was a 0.1% voted by the people. Would you like me to move forward with that at all?
I don't want to move forward with that one.
All right. The public safety enhancement sales tax. This is a council decision. Would the council like to move forward on this one?
Is this the one that's in orange that you're referring to?
Yes, sir. This is a non-voted. Now, there is a caveat with this one. If the board chooses to go out for the public safety sales tax, the voted one, and that is turned down, the public safety enhancement sales tax cannot be put in place for 12 months.
I'm not for just instituting a tax without the will of the people.
I see 2 shakes of the head. All right.
Okay.
Next up is the public safety sales tax at 0.2%.
Brian, I want to ask you a clarifying question. Are you saying that if that if the voters implement that tax, that they're not gonna clarify your point with that, please, if you could?
Yeah, so, and this is Brian's point of view, not accurate. So I'm saying that, so right now we're 8.1, right? So that would put us at 8.3, which is a pretty heavy lift. If the voters approved in August, and so we are a little behind, so we are not going to make the August budget. So we would probably be, and we're really sensitive about how we put time-wise this. So November is already pretty full. I know Longview's looking at maybe 1/10 of 1%, but if the voters approve at 0.2 of 1% in August, and we come on the heels of that and ask for another 1/10, my feeling is, even as positive as I feel our project would be, it would have a pretty difficult time passing.
So I just want to clarify, Cowlitz County sales tax is 7.7%. The city of Longview is 8.2.
But 7.7 in the county.
Correct.
Interesting. I didn't know it was that low. So is that, so if you buy something in the county and out of the incorporated area, you only pay 7.7 for it?
That's correct. Currently, our sales tax, of course, you have the state 6.5%. We have our first and second half optional for 1%. The additional 2 items we have are the criminal justice, 0.1%, and the 911 tax, which is wholly distributed to the 911 authority for 1/10 as well. And that's what makes up our 7.7%.
I don't know for a fact, but I think Longview is probably highest because you buy a coffee in Longview versus Kelso, there's like 25 cents difference.
Yeah, well, you know, I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised on that. I always thought that the tax in the unincorporated areas was 8, and it was like 8.1 in the city. Well, and I guess still my thought is, you know, it's my passion, so obviously I'm protective. And I understand you guys have a tough job here trying to get this balanced. But I'm just trying to do what I can to make a positive change. Thanks.
And I appreciate that, Brian. And I have to say, I agree with you that we need to be proactive with doing things to bring things to Cowlitz County to improve the quality of life so that we attract more of the people that we want to our county.
Okay, so the resident election administrator can't keep her seat. She has to get up here and say something. So to these points, everybody has their different priorities, but I would stress if you're going to put something to the vote of the people, it's because you have faith in what the voters decide. It shouldn't be about who's most important. Let the voters decide what they believe is a priority for their communities. I don't think they'll let you down. Could I also make some clarifying points as like a department head? We're having a discussion and, you know, the public isn't hearing from regular old department heads from the general fund. And I'm a conservative myself, strong conservative, fiscal conservative. And I agree with a lot of comments that are made here, but what I would like to bring to light to the public is nobody works anywhere where they're not going to get a pay increase, right? So we're always growing or we're going to lose employees. Nobody stays with an employer without a raise. So every time that you approve a union contract with COLAs in it, you recognize that, right? So I guess to that point, you know, us department heads, I want to make sure that the public knows that we're waiting for direction. Nobody is, that I'm aware of, is sitting back, refusing to do anything, right? We want to work together. So we're kind of waiting to see where we end up with this budget to make some decisions on what we have to do versus what we can do in the interim. I just want to make it clear that as department heads are working with the board actively. I didn't want it to appear as though, you know, we're all resisting, because I don't think that's the case.
Well, I
But-
heard them right here in this room.
Who?
I heard them right here in this room in November. They sit right up and they talk to me.
I don't,
So
that's not what
I heard the judge sit
heard.
right there.
So I did,
So
excluding the,
don't be telling me that.
well,
'cause
don't put me in the same category as the judges, I guess, to that point. So we're in this together, and we're going to work it out together. But as a department head, I would like the public to know that cuts aren't going to give them any break. So we can cut, and we may likely be forced to cut, but the reality of those cuts is that you're going to lose services. The great service that you receive in the auditor's office every time that you come in, we're going to be forced to close our doors on certain days or reduce our hours to accommodate leave time and lunches and get everything done that we need to get done. You won't get out of paying the services that Olympia is kind of forcing on us. You're just going to get better, unfortunately, no service when you come in the door from us, because we won't be staffed or equipped to handle it like we used to. And if that needs to happen, that needs to happen. But I want to make sure it's clear that's what will happen with cuts.
I think, I think in fairness to the judges, they're upset with the statement that was read by Judge Evans was in response to what was proposed was I believe a 24% cut to that department. And so I think that was a strong hit for them to try and swallow. So I think they reacted. You probably could have predicted that.
And I do appreciate you, Carolyn, saying that the department heads are willing to work with us on this, because it is going to take all of us working together to get through this problem. I still believe that the property tax, the increase, those things that we were doing previously we need to reinstitute those things. Those are not new taxes. Those are just, that's how we keep up with the contractual obligations that we have. So I'm in favor of those things. We do need to reinstitute our revenue generating sources that we've used for decades. That's what, that was the bread and butter that we had. The influx of money that we got during COVID obviously shifted some things around, and we went away from those and gave the taxpayers some respite on that, which is great. But we have to get back to that because we have contractual obligations that we have to comply with. So I do appreciate you coming up and voicing your viewpoints about that. It's good to know that you guys are willing to work with us, and I do get that sense. I do understand that historically, I would say that the relationship between the board and the judges has been shaky. To Commissioner Dahl's point about, you know, the threats of litigation. I would like to see us get to a point to where we can work together, and I think we're working towards those ends to get to that point. I think that the judges are aware that we're not just saying we have to, we're in a serious situation, and I think they're aware of that. And quite honestly, though we would like to think so, if something is statutory regulated by the government, then no one department is more important than another. If we have to meet the statutory requirements that we have to meet, then we have to meet them. So that doesn't mean that one department gets, you know, more leverage or more money because they're this. Sorry, this department has the same statutory regulations that we have to comply with. So as far as the weighted value goes, it's the same. And each department is, and when I say each department, I mean every branch of the government within the county government is going to have to take a look at where they're at as far as their budget goes, and they're going to have to make some changes. That's just what it's going to boil down to. Whether they have in the past or not is a moot point. We're not in the past. We're where we are right now today, and it's going to have to be addressed. And I hope that all departments are listening, and I know that all departments are aware of where we are and the severity of the situation that we're in. And we're going to be asking there's going to be some sacrifices that are going to have to be made.
I agree with that. And I guess that was my point coming up here, is just kind of reminding the public and myself too, we're not working against you. We're in this together. So we're looking, I mean, you guys are going to have to go to work just like us. You know, you have to get back to our regular bread and butter in taxes, and also put some issues to the voters and let them decide what's important. That was my point. One thing though that I haven't heard discussed in a public meeting, I have discussed with Sean. I honestly don't know the calculations, but we have talked about voluntary furloughs. And something, I wanted to bring it to a public meeting because yes, voluntary furloughs means reduction in service, but it's something that employees or departments could sign up for on a voluntary basis without sending people home, losing jobs. In fact, what I proposed to Sean was if we had an agreement, say the board decided the auditor's office needs to cut $100,000 in the 2027 budget, right? That's about a position and a quarter or so. What if every employee in the auditor's office, if we knew that number, right? What if every employee decided to take a minimum number of unpaid furloughs in addition to VEBA contributions? That's an optional, I mean, that's a lot of money. VEBA every month is a lot of money. And let me tell you, we did that in 2008. It didn't work. The relationship between the department heads and the board didn't work out so great because they still required a cut. But let me tell you, if you gave us the promise, I have to tell you that my staff would rally and they would say, we don't want to send somebody home. We're all going to donate and keep our family safe, right? Just an option to throw out there.
So I don't want to get too far off base here. Want to talk about revenues today? We can start talking about cost savings in the next coming weeks, and I think that's one of the items we will be discussing at that point. So when we left off, we were talking on public safety sales tax at 0.2% and looking for a direction on that.
I'm for putting it to the people.
That works.
So just to clarify for the record, I see 1 no and 2 yeses. Is that correct?
To put it to a vote of the people.
Correct. Okay. And as we work forward through the year, we'll come back and talk more on property taxes, investment earnings, the veterans levy, and the road shift. We'll see in a few weeks to talk about expenditures then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can I just do my agenda items while I'm up here? Or you want to break from me?
no, go ahead.
All righty. So item number 15 is an agreement with the Port of Kalama to provide funding assistance from the Path and Trails for $750,000. If you recall, last year, the port came in, gave some presentations. At that point, the board gave us approval to start the contract process to get this funding in place. This is finalizing that process. The port has signed our agreement and is coming before the board.
That's to replace that current thing. It'll add the elevators and make it,
Correct, the pedestrian overpass between the city
Yeah.
and the port, yeah. And then I believe Deb's out this week, so items number 10 and 16 related to the PFD project. We have amendment number 3 to the interlocal agreement with the Cowlitz PFD to extend the collection of sales tax for additional years and certain improvements to the Cowlitz County Regional Conference Center. And then a resolution to authorize the issuing of bonds on behalf of the Cowlitz PFD to allow the collection of sales tax of 0.033% to refund the 2025 limited GO refunding bonds and improvements to the regional center project. I think we've been in here a few times talking about the interlocal agreements and resolutions with the PFD. I think the board's fairly apprised of that. And if you had any additional questions on it before tomorrow's meeting. Thank you, commissioners.
building and planning.
Back again. Tomorrow in front of you on a motion item number 20, you have the final approval for KT West subdivision plat. It went to Planning Commission in October. It was the additional lot from a Chilton development. It added the 5th lot, and instead of them being able to do a short plat within 5 years, they had to do a subdivision, so that's what this is. I went to Planning Commission, approved in October. You guys approved the final plat in November for them to move forward with it, and they beat feet and got her done quick, so it'll be on your agenda tomorrow. You have to open the public meeting, close it, and then sign the final plat, and they'll have a recorded legal lot.
So this is 5 lots?
This will
now?
be the 5th lot for the,
And it's a motion item. It's,
it is a motion item because you get to sign the plat.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, and then they go down and record it, and then they have their legal lot of record.
all right.
Yep. Thank you.
Bailey, I'm assuming this is you, commissioners.
Good morning. I have agenda item number 17, the resolution rescinding the 2019 Excellence in Service Employee Recognition Policy. The primary reason this is being updated was because after the board approved the updated travel policy, which I believe now is called like reimbursement and allowable expense policy, There was some conflicting language in this policy, so we removed that language, and then we also just updated some language and processes. One of those processes is the board's office, along with human resources, will now be handling like the employee recognition side of this policy. We previously did the retirement aspect, but now we'll be doing the whole policy, so. Any questions?
So the changes here, I think I heard what you said. A lot of the update was to reflect changes we made in our travel policy, so they coincide.
Yeah, there was just some expenses that weren't allowed via that policy, and then this policy said that they were, so we removed that language, and then we just updated some. We made things more generic, like previously I talked about an annual employee barbecue. We just said an annual employee appreciation event, which will give us more flexibility moving forward if we don't want to do that, so.
Okay. You already took care of finance, yeah. Juvenile, George.
Good morning, Commissioners. George Moya, Juvenile Court. Tomorrow on the agenda before you, you'll have an amendment to our contract with Columbia County for detention services. The amendment changes to the original contract that was set in effect in 2012. We've had this contract since 2012. Essentially extends the contract expiration date to May 31st of 2028 and also increases the fee for services.
George, what's the increase in the bed rate?
Between the increase that we currently have now that we're asking for, it went from 152 to 161 per day.
When we, for some reason, I was under the impression that when we talked, we were going to increase that bed rate like by $100.
So, no, that's the state contract that we have with the state. That was increased to 250. So that went from 150 to 250. So that increased the rate for detention services to the state contract. We're also extending that to other contracts that we do business with, like Pacific, Wahkiakum, Clatsop County. Those contracts are being amended also to increase the fee. The difference with that being with Columbia County is Columbia County pays the county no matter what, meaning they pay us a monthly fee regardless of whether they use 1 day or 2 days within that month. So they get the benefit of the 161 because they're constantly paying. Whereas the other contracts with Pacific, Wahkiakum or Clatsop County, or even the state contract, it's per use. So if they're not using it, they're not paying. Whereas Columbia County is paying us a monthly rate.
Okay.
I wish this could generate 18.1 million, but it won't.
So I after we talked last week, I thought about a question while I was gone. What are your thoughts on these contracts that we have with regards to the liability exposure that we're getting, taking in other counties' youth, and is the revenue that is being generated from these contracts, is it something that you feel is worth our while with that liability exposure, given the environment that we're in?
That's an excellent question. At the state level, all the administrators that are managing detention facilities, we're getting together with the state to generate what we're considering a universal formula to address specific costs and operational costs from FTE to infrastructure to now liability. Because as you're well aware, that is the greatest fad right now with attorneys in terms of law firms seeking compensation for whatever it may be through tort claims. Yeah, that's a great question. I can let you know that at the state level, we are discussing that with the state to come up with a universal formula that's going to address infrastructure, FTEs, and liability issues. Because we're saying it's not equitable. Even at the 250 rate, it's not equitable. It needs
So
to be.
you would agree that it's not?
No, right. I agree. It is not. 250 is not. When the state is telling the legislature during their legislative hearings that the true cost to their bed rate is in the 1500s per bed, you know, how is it that at the county level, you're only paying us 250? You know, that's insane. Something's not adding up. I get that they have a different sort of infrastructure that we don't have, but at the end of the day, it's still a bed is a bed, a meal is a meal, and medical is medical. So.
Okay.
Do all these, like does Columbia County, Oregon, does it have a juvenile center of its own?
They don't.
No.
No.
Wahkiakum, Pacific, all those probably don't.
Correct, they don't.
So we pay to keep our juvenile center $3 to $4 million a year. It costs us to keep that running.
Mhm.
And they pay us $161 a day. Why
Depends-
are we even doing this? I mean, they should be helping cover the cost of a center that they didn't have to build. They didn't have to build. They don't have to staff. We're doing all that for them to the tune of $3 to $4 million a year. And they get to pay us $160 a day to send whatever kid here. That's a heck of a deal. How can I get that deal with somebody? I mean, I'd pay somebody $160 to send our kids somewhere.
I
in a
couldn't agree
heartbeat.
with you more. Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to look at these anymore. If they had to do their own center, they should be helping cover this center since we're providing that service. And they're providing the same number of kids roughly that we have in Cowlitz County. I mean, it's not like we got 10 million kids over there. We run single digits a lot of times, maybe low teens. These other counties are getting a heck of a deal, and I'd like to have that same deal with somebody else.
That was the point I was leading up to, Mr. Chair, is this equitable for us, given the?
It's not equitable for us. Georgia, I'm probably going to ask to move this to motion because I think it takes a little more conversation tomorrow. I'm sorry to do that to you, but I think
Sure.
I'm going to move this to motion or ask to move it to motion. We have a bigger conversation on it with tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay.
What's our cost per day per person for the total cost of running that juvenile center?
It can range anywhere between about 350 to 450. It all depends on the population. You know, if we get an influx of youth in our facility, then the cost, you know, correct. Because, you know, that makes it more manageable. But if we have less youth, clearly, then we're forcing to make some changes and maybe send staff home, so.
Tomorrow, if you could you bring the numbers that we take in from each one of these counties with these contracts that we have?
Sure, I have that number now, but I can bring it tomorrow. Yeah, I can say this, that, you know, we're not the only county with the exact same rates. Grace Harbor's in the same boat that we're in, Clark County, Lewis County, because the rates are driven almost by the state rate. And we're telling the state, that's not fair. We need to increase it.
Yeah.
When we increase that, that's essentially a domino effect for all the other contracts.
Well, I think that we would be able to put more pressure on the state if we weren't subsidizing 5 counties. If those counties had to say, hey.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Because if Grace Harbor chooses to remain the same, then I can easily see Pacific, Waukegan, Columbia County driving to Grace Harbor for the same rate.
So if you remove the kids, and there's no kids in the facility at all, with all the other expenses to run that facility, what's it cost per day to run it?
I would have to calculate that. I've only
Oh.
done the calculation based on the population and based on average daily population. And so, again, those numbers fluctuate.
Well, more global costs, you could look at it in this term, it just use a $3 million figure that we spend every year to keep that over there. That's $8,200 a day that it costs us to run that facility.
Yeah.
So if you divide that by 10 kids, you got $820 a kid a day.
To make that
If
8,200,
you
yeah,
had 10 kids in there.
yeah.
I can have numbers for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Is he the sheriff? Is he online? Jordan is? Jordan.
Morning.
Good morning. Looks like you just have a couple more of the agreements to use your shooting range
That's correct. That's it.
with the tribe and, okay. Items 3 and 4 is what I'm, nope, 5 and 6, okay. You think that wraps them up?
That should be the last of them, at least for now. The only one that we're missing is the state patrol, and I think they've gone and done something else. So to my knowledge, that's all the entities that we've used that have used it in the past, and they just have renewed for this year.
Perfect. Any questions, Jordan? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Event, Kim.
Good morning, Kim Bocut with Cowlitz County Event Center. I have 2 items on the agenda tomorrow. There was 3, but I think one's a duplicate. The first one, put my glasses on, is a grant that we are receiving from the Washington State Department of Agriculture. It's a health and safety grant in the amount of $186,000. And that is going to help us to install LED pole-mounted lights in the parking areas at the south end of the grounds, upgrade existing fixtures to LED, and also install a camera system. We currently have a camera system only inside the event center, the conference center, and we don't have any cameras on the grounds. This is a reimbursement grant, so we will do the work and then we get reimbursed from Department of Ag.
Do you have to send that out for bid, Kim, or can we do it ourselves?
We could do it ourselves, yes.
Okay.
If there's anything that has to be provided, done for us, then yes, we would follow purchasing procedures.
Okay.
Mhm. Is there any questions on that one before I go to the next one? The second grant is in the amount of $23,500. This is to renovate basically our open beef barn. It is barn 14 at the fairgrounds. The posts in there are deteriorating, and so they're giving us a grant to replace those rotten wood posts with steel panels. It also is going to help us to construct a concrete manure dumping area. Right now, all waste from stalls and animals go into kind of a pile and we compost it in the back of the rodeo grounds. That process will still continue. However, this will allow us to build kind of I think it's a 12 by 12 area to dump the manure in so that the tractor can scoop it up without taking the ground underneath it. And again, it's a reimbursement grant. We will expend the money and get reimbursed. And that's all I have for you, unless you have questions.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see the treasurer. Is she? Sean took care of that. Public Works.
Good morning, Savannah Clement, Public Services. I have one purchasing item for the board that's on consent tomorrow. And it's actually a local collaborative, and it's called Local Government Cooperative. Very fancy name. But anyway, this allows us to get involved in an interlocal agreement with actually the state of Idaho to get some really competitive pricing for sign materials and road materials. And it allows us to utilize this agreement, which are competitive agreements bid following Washington state law and our purchasing policy. So this agreement is just letting us do that. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll pass to Susan.
So good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer, and I have various items bringing tomorrow. So the first is a call for hearing. This is another call for hearing for a franchisee. This one would be with Comcast. It's a 10-year, proposed 10-year franchise that we have been working with Comcast for quite a while. It's called for a public hearing on March 24th. And then various consent items. Savannah talked about our first one, the local cooperative. The next is the local agency agreement supplement number 2 in a revised perspective with WashDOT for the Allender Road Bridge Replacement Project. So those bids, as you know, came in low. And because they were below a certain threshold, WashDOT makes us go through and update our local agency agreement with them to reflect the lower cost. But fortunately for us, with that lower cost, we have been able to shift some of the originally obligated money to cover some more work that public agency, Public Works themselves would be doing. So there's an increase in the line of federal funds towards local work of $279,000. So the net decrease in the agreement is $57,454. So we should still be able to cover the whole project in addition to covering some of our local agency cost. That would be inspectors' cost, surveyors' cost, items that we would usually do and not necessarily get reimbursed for. It's a paperwork issue. Any questions on that one? So the next item is change order number 2 to our unit price countywide guardrail repair contract. So this is the second year of the contract, and as such, the vendor has the right to show the increase of items that they bid in 2024 to current prices. So we give them a cost increase opportunity at this time. And we, unfortunately, as we have noticed, our amount of damage has gone up. So this is a total change order request for $30,000, bringing the contract to $502,800. $80.75. We are getting geared up to go out and do another repair, which is why we are bringing this change order forward at this time. We're looking at doing repairs end of this month, beginning of April. Estimating 3 weeks. We have lots of damage and end sections to repair again.
Is it number of incidents, Susan, or is it just like worse damage per incident?
So it's just the number of incidents besides the hits from drivers. We've also had a great increase this year of damage of tree fall. So we had a lot of trees down in some of these events, and then when they fall, sometimes they damage the guardrail significantly enough that it needs to be replaced. The small dings we flatten out ourselves or leave if they're not, they don't impede the rail's ability to do its job. We just leave them. All right, then we have in the correspondence, we have 3 property items, recorded road and utility easement for the Sweet Birch storm sewer repair. That is work that we've already completed on an emergency basis the fall of 25. So we negotiated with the property owners and we come to this agreement for the easement that we needed for the relocated storm drain. Then the other 2 items are for the Shadow Mountain project that we have coming up in the next month and a half. Public Works has 1 motion item, and it's change order number 1 to the contract with Quig Brothers for the Barnes Road repair. So as we were going through the contract, that was an emergency. We went through it quickly. We found a couple items as we were finalizing the costs that were not documented correctly. So this change order is to correct that issue, as in the extensions weren't multiplied out correctly. So the unit price for these items is not changing. The math is being corrected. So that's change in bid item number 4, which is roadway excavation and haul, embankment and disposal, including haul, crushed surfacing base course. And in addition to that, when the contractor was out there working, the time to remove all of the material that is not acceptable in the embankment or in the creek increased by just over $12,000. This change order brings the total contract amount to $674,850 for that Barnes Road repair. I'm been told by the construction manager that some of the other quantities went down, but in order to make our paperwork look neat, he's bringing forward this big of a change order, but we're still expecting this contract to come in at about $550,000 once all of the paperwork is corrected. So this is a paperwork exercise. Yes, that is a big difference.
Okay.
So if you'd like, I can bring pictures of the before and after, or we can just talk about it. And I'll have the actual amount of the contract, what we're anticipating at this point tomorrow morning. I did not have a chance to ask him today. Yeah. So I have an additional item that I would like to discuss either now or under miscellaneous at your pleasure.
Go ahead.
So as most of you are aware, we had an emergency with our leachate transmission lines. So I have a resolution that we've written requesting the board declare an emergency for emergency contracting for the repair of.
We can do the work right away.
Yes. So Savannah just handed way more copies than you need because so for you guys to look at, it's basically declaring an emergency for the leachate line repair. This line is out of headquarters landfill. It transmits leachate from the collection ponds at the landfill, 16 miles down to the Three Rivers Regional Wastewater Authority where it is treated prior to being sent out. We did have a break in it last week that we're getting corrected.
Sounded like from Savannah's email that any of the spillage has been cleaned up and we're okay with it.
Yes, we have been in conversations with Ecology, following their direction and keeping it cleaned up.
Okay. Got to get it working. Okay.
So are we including that tomorrow or approving it today is kind of your choice, you're the board.
Huh?
Your choice if you wanted to approve it today or add it to tomorrow.
I think we just approve it today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh? We should make it formal.
Okay, ready? I move approval of the emergency repairs for damages of the leachate transmission line serving headquarters landfill.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure you just send out electronic to us. Okay.
I just have one more miscellaneous. It's just an update for the board. We do plan to come to the board tomorrow at our 2 o'clock afternoon meeting to discuss county facilities and assets with the board. So just a heads up on that. We want to do that tomorrow afternoon.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
I see Jessica today. You must have something today.
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I just have a request for an executive session under collective bargaining. So if you had any other miscellaneous or other items, we can wait until the end for that.
Kim does? Okay. Is that the fair board?
Good morning again. It looks like we had an applicant for the Fair Board. I am not familiar with this person. I believe they did contact our office asking how to get involved with the Fair Board. We did invite them to our meeting. They did not come, so I have not had a chance to meet.
Do you have an opening? Because we just filled.
We
an
do,
opening.
we do have an opening on the Fair Board, not the Rodeo Board. They're two different boards. I know in the past, you guys have taken the time to interview candidates. I would welcome that. I just don't have I've never talked to this person, so. Anybody that wants to volunteer and be on a board, I'm all for it, so should preface that, but. And she has a pretty cool name, Kimberly.
Well, she was a council person at Kelso. She lost this last election.
Okay.
She's a pretty good person. I don't think there's really any issue with that. Where
Okay.
she's at right now is because I saw her post, she's down and watching spring training, so she'll probably be back. I think she'd be a good person. She always did well on Kelso Council, in my opinion.
Great.
Pretty fair.
I had a question with regards to this, not because of this particular one, but of another one. What happens if we appoint someone to a board and they don't work out? What's the process to get them off of that board?
We can take a vote here and say,
You're gone?
yeah. On most of the advisory boards, there's certain ones that have, and this would not be one of those. There's a different protocol, but the great majority of them, it's just us. I'd be okay with her, Kim. I think you'd be fine with her.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's great. I didn't know her, so I didn't have a recommendation either way, but that's great that they're, not that it matters to know somebody, but it is always helpful.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Hey, Jessica, you had how many minutes? 10 minutes? And remind me of the category again? Collective bargaining, okay. Okay, executive session, collective bargaining, 10 minutes. Okay, back from executive session, no actions taken. Anything else, Jessica? I think we're all good. Okay. Miscellaneous liaison reports. I'll report on a couple I met with. One I met with Event Center, Kim. And part of the conversation was we've had a contract with, when we set up the PFD, there was a contract between us and the county that goes back. I don't know exactly the start year, but what I can say, it was pretty favorable because we didn't know how it was going to work, and it's worked out really well. And that contract has never been updated. There's no adjustments for increasing lease payments or whatever you want to call them. And I've started the conversation with one of the board members that contract, I think, comes up in 27. And that my expectation would be, since it's been successful, that what we charge, we should not have to put general funds out to make sure the fair operates. When we have a leasee that's making money, it should be able to pay for the system. So that was a conversation I kind of started that they should expect the contract to be looked at. And they've tried to help. There's been years where they've just gave the fair some money to try and cover that. So as they do, I want them to do well, but there should be some kind of a graph that as they're doing well, that we're doing well too. And that was never put in place. And I get why it wasn't put in place at the beginning, because it didn't know what they were going to do. Okay. The other one was with IT, and there's two items in there that I don't really understand, and I'll keep working on. One was, there was a time when, and I'm talking about specifically PeopleSoft, but it's just the whole idea of having backups. I had directors, department heads in my office. I got called over to the court because they were worried we didn't have backups and we're going to lose these people. We don't have anything. So made it a priority. And we got backups for PeopleSoft in place, a company. And now we're just, and I asked about that, how it's going. They said, we don't use them. We don't need it. So I don't know how it can be such a high priority item that I have people in my office and I get called over to the courts that we have backups and now we don't need them. I'm trying to get square with that, but I'm not really buying into it. I don't want to be held hostage by employees again because they're threatening to leave. Because we worked hard to put that in place, and it was almost a demand that it get in place. And so I'm just telling you, that's a little bit of heartburn I have, and I'll keep working with that. The other one is, since I came on board, I've been asking about, why don't we look at Teams versus Zoom for two reasons. And when the credit union went to Teams, I'll say, nobody likes change. And I was going, I wonder how this is going to go. But when you use it, there's two benefits to it. Number one, it's part of your Microsoft agreement. It's part of your Microsoft license. It's not an additional cost. You're not paying for Teams and also paying for Zoom. Where here, Teams is part of our Microsoft Office, and we pay extra for Zoom. And number two, it's a much more usable system than Zoom when you get used to it and how you can do it. And that's just, we had people that were testing it, had it on systems and tested it, and now that's just been put on the shelf. It's just been shelved. And I'm going, why would we do that? We were that close to doing it. So those are two things that I'm still speaking with about when we have these meetings, but I'm bringing it to your attention. I think those are two step backwards, and I don't understand why we're doing it, but that's just a report on that. Other than that, what else did I met with the treasurer? Nothing really there. That was kind of the accounting question I had for Carolyn in the other day, because we use different systems, and how do when the treasurer sends the stuff over, how do you get it so it fits right into the slot? Yeah, and that was kind of that question. Racked my brain. Okay, I think that covers liaisons I've had. Any other miscellaneous or?
I met with the clerk, with Stacy. And that went good. She is looking at making some possible changes with regards to the budget and saving money. She's got some good ideas that she's gonna be implementing. I also met with the courts. I met with Danielle and Judge Fassett and expressed to them the severity of where we are as far as our budget constraints go, and they're willing to work with us on what needs to be done. They understand where we are with that, so I'm looking forward to that. I also met with Dallas and drug court as I was doing the whole court system. And we've been talking quite a bit about trying to find alternative sources of funding as opposed to the traditional sources. And he actually asked me the question. He says, "What, we have all these NGOs that are asking for money, and that you guys give them money. Why can't we ask for money also?" And I said, "Well, that's a good question. I don't know why." And so he had a conversation with Gina, and there is money that's available that we give out to the organizations within our community that is available to them also. So they're going to start looking at that as opposed to getting it from taxes. So I haven't heard back yet. While I was in DC, what came from that, but so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's probably a good point, because you think of Meals on Wheels and all these different ones we do.
Yeah. So he asked, "Why hasn't that been happening?" I said, I have no idea. I asked Gina, and she said, "Yeah, actually, that never been brought up." So they're going to look at that as a source of funding. Just an update on my DC trip. It went very well. Had a good conversation with Army Corps, and we discussed some of the options for the river. We'll be meeting with the Portland office. I have a phone call that David's scheduling with the Portland office here within the week to discuss what options we have as far as us doing what we need to do to take care of our levees and not relying on the Corps to do that is an option under a couple of sections of legislation that we might be able to take action on ourselves. So I'll bring up more about that. The two common themes from my trip in a lot of the workshops that I went to was data centers coming to a town near you, and what counties can do to either prepare for a data center coming into our area or not. We decide if we don't do or don't want them, what that looks like. And there was a lot of talk about that. And also, the president talked about data centers generating their own electricity and not using the public grid for that, because they do suck a lot of electricity. So there was a lot of talk about that with regards to making sure their land is zoned, if we are a county that is interested in having a data center here, that our zoning is taken care of, because they are looking for places to put them. So they talked about the pros and the cons with regards to that. Also, permit reform. We did talk a little about permits this morning with Tracy. They talked about how the federal government is also looking at permit reform with a lot of the permits that they require, and they're hoping that transfers to state permit reform. They were very outspoken about the fact that permitting is the number one cause of delays and expense in projects, and they recognize that, and they want to get rid of that burden. So we'll see how that goes. But I had a good conversation with our representatives with regards to our concerns about the river. I don't know that we're going to see immediate action, but we do have actionable items that we are going to take. Once we have this phone call with the Army Corps, I'll be able to we'll be able to talk about what those actionable items are. At this point, David's gonna get that taken care of for us, but all in all, it was a good meeting. I think it was very productive. And, the Army Corps, the meeting with them was by far the most productive.
Were you able to meet with Cantwell or Murray, either one?
Yeah, I met with Murray's office, Cantwell's office, Camp Perez's office, and the Army Corps.
Awesome. Under miscellaneous, at the recent PCO meeting, City of Longview, representatives that were there from the council stated that they were very, very upset at a recent meeting they had with a potential business industry to come to Longview that would have provided 10,000 jobs was the number they threw out. They were right through the process. Everything was looking really good till they sat down at a meeting with the PUD, which had an engineer in the meeting who just said, no, can't be done. And walked
Because of
out
power?
Lack of power. And I don't know what the power requirements were for, and I don't know what the industry was. They said they were under a non-disclosure agreement, so they couldn't tell us who it was, but they were extremely disgusted. And people in the room focused on me and wanted to know if the county could put together a workshop and meet with the PUD and find out what can we do to help them move forward with power requirements, potential issues, to do something, some way to have more power opportunity in the county to provide for those type of job opportunities. So that was one. The other, I've been asked several times if we're gonna have another Mount St. Helens workshop and update with the Army Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife, everybody involved as far as what's going on with the mountain, but specifically about the sediment retention structure, which has now been funded, and where all that's at. So a workshop for Mount St. Helens again is kind of a request.
Sure.
I can speak to the crest raise a little bit. When I met with the Corps, they're moving forward with that. They're not, there's no interest in alternatives at this point. I know that there are things that are in the works that we will probably hear about here in the next 2 weeks with regards to that situation. But as far as the Corps was concerned, what I was told is that they will have boots on the ground within 90 to 120 days up there.
Yeah, I believe in the recent Cowlitz Conference of Governments meeting I attended last week that my understanding was they've already issued the contract. It went out for bids and they've already awarded the contract to get it started.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
So as far as liaison reports go, met with Carolyn and you heard her today talk about, give us direction. Met with Emily, she's looked at and trimmed a job out of her department and looking at reducing costs. And I met with Ryan and he's Sheriff Kindon, and he pointed out that you can't really do much because of constitutional requirements for the public defender's office. They were required to provide public defense for anybody. However, that's not true for the prosecutor's office. So he's kind of looking at what he can do also as far as where our budget's going to come down and how that's going to get trimmed. And I guess that's about the end of it for me.
I wonder on these large companies, because we're probably going to run into that every time with PUD on the power. I mean, I've heard that before, and to dismiss a company that whatever type of company it was is bringing that kind of base to us is almost makes me want to gag.
Yeah.
But I wonder, maybe we should check on that. Are we And I don't know if the state would even allow you, but some of these large companies, maybe in their plans needs to be their own self-generation of power. You can build these little plants on not a huge footprint and power your own generation. And maybe we should look at, do we allow them to do that, one? And can they get permits for that too, I guess? I know in Eastern Washington, they're building some of these, what are these?
Self-generating.
Yeah.
power. It's, that's one of the things that they talked about in one of our meetings, and it is something that people across the country are looking to take the strain off of the grid.
Yeah.
If, you know, and what they said was, it all boils down to making sure that you have, you being the counties, have done what we need to do as far as our homework and due diligence to say, hey, you can come here and do this. Or if we don't want somebody like that coming here and doing it, then we need to specify it. But to prepare and to lay that groundwork one way or the other, because there are counties that don't, and those are the places that they're kind of shying away from. So if we're saying, hey, we're open, you know, we're open to this idea in Cowlitz County, come and take a look at it, then we need to lay that groundwork, get that policy.
Yeah, I don't want to be the blocking point.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think recently, in State of the Union address, Trump talked about the fact that these large data centers and huge power requirements, pushing for those type of big companies. If they're going to come in, they're going to have to build their own generation. And I think the small modular reactors now take up like 6 acres. They're not monstrous territories like the old ones were. Yeah. And it just always stuns me. I mean, on the U.S. military, how many nuclear reactors have we got? Nuclear powered aircraft carriers and submarines and everything. And we got thousands of our kids are on those vessels. They've never had an incident. And the military can turn one out overnight, but we can't build one for 30 years.
Yeah.
So it's just nauseating, the amount of restrictions that are being placed on us. And while we're struggling and wanting clean power, China is building a new coal-fired plant every week. So,
well, and we, in our area, we have the resources that they would need. And one of them, particularly for data centers, is water.
Yeah.
That they use for cooling. So that's something that I think that we need to discuss. Another thing that I just thought of as I drove by the Cowlitz River and saw the seals.
Yeah.
In my conversation with Perez, she is pushing and moving forward with Pinniped, you know, what we can do about that. Because I told her, I said, you know, it's kind of interesting to me that we have this ostensibly this faction that is so concerned with our fish and with our resources, and we even have game wardens who are weighing people's smelt buckets to make sure that they don't go over the weight. And we've got 150 seals over here at the mouth of the Cowlitz just raising havoc on the salmon and on the smelt, and nothing is being done about that. So it's interesting to me to see where our priorities truly lie when it comes down to saving the fish, so to speak. But yeah, she thanked us for the letter that we signed on to get that, to move that legislation forward as far as the seals go, sea lions.
I did see we have quite a few more emails regarding the Humane Society issue.
Yeah.
Between last week and this week, I think I'm over 24 now easily.
I thought we'd address that somewhat tomorrow after get through an agenda before public comments.
I suspect we're going to have some people here to talk about it.
Well, that'd be good.
Yeah.
I've had some pretty vile emails and messages in the past, but nothing like I've gotten in the last 5 days over that situation. In fact, one of them this morning, I was like, wow.
Welcome home.
I've said this before and probably say it again. I've worked with over the years in private sector or whatnot. I've seen a lot of contracts, and and worked with a lot of people doing contracts. Sometimes you sign them, sometimes you don't agree, but this is the first. I've never seen a vendor throw themselves on the ground like 2-year-olds and to demand their money.
Yeah.
That's a very first to me.
It's very telling.
Yeah.
I must have missed something about an article in the Daily News that I saw. There was a follow-up letter from attorney from, was it Dave? I can't remember who wrote it, that talked about that Daily News article that apparently said that we took action in executive behind closed doors to end that contract, that we voted on ending the contract. No, the contract just expired.
Contract expired. It
We
did
didn't
it
vote-
itself.
Yeah, it had an expiration date and the contract expired. We didn't vote to stop a contract or terminate a contract.
We just didn't enter into a new one.
Yeah, we just didn't enter into a new one. So I don't know where that came from. Daily News making up stories again.
Well, everybody's got to be good at something.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we make Bailey nervous today? Probably did, didn't we? Yeah. Anything else, gentlemen?
Good.
Okay, we will adjourn.